How do you go from nonprofit founder to full-time executive director to negotiating your salary with your board of directors, exponentially growing your funding, and more? We're talking to Amy Weiss from Houston, Texas, who started Undies for Everyone, to learn how she started a nonprofit from scratch and is now running a $1 million+ annual budget and helping tens of thousands of kids across the country every year. This is another segment of our nonprofit founder to full-time stories. I'm Amber Melanie Smith, a nonprofit founder, social entrepreneur, and social impact YouTuber with a mission of helping you accelerate your social impact through nonprofits, social entrepreneurship, fundraising, and so much more. And don't forget to subscribe to Changemaker Mondays, our weekly newsletter with actionable strategies to help you make a difference, and funding opportunities, events, and opportunities for us to connect as changemakers. The link to subscribe is below this video. All right, Amy, tell me all about Undies for Everyone. What does your organization do? Who do you serve?
It's super simple. We serve kids who are being served by a variety of agencies. Every school district in the country has to have a homeless department by federal law. So we know we can go anywhere and call the homeless department. So we serve those kids, Child Protective Services, Boys and Girls Clubs, community closets, and in a few cities, pediatric mobile clinics. So here in Houston, we have Texas Children's Hospital. It's enormous. They have 4, maybe 5 trucks that are clinics, and they keep underwear on the truck. So does Children's Hospital in Washington, D.C., San Antonio, and a few other places. We go over, it's approximately age 5 to 14 is about our guess. Through middle school for sure, because we want the girls who've gotten their periods, and if they're irregular, we want them to have underwear too. But if it's from 4T up to XXL in guys and 4T up to size 20 in girls, we got them.
Yeah. What was life like before you started Undies for Everyone?
Okay.
What were you doing with your life before all this?
I was taking care of my kids, right? So many women will say, I had no time, I couldn't do it. And then, as they got older, so I had a women's group that I was doing, and I was blogging for the Houston Chronicle, and I was making Lego mezuzahs.
Ooh, what's that? For those who don't know.
A mezuzah is a casing with a prayer scroll in it that Jewish people put on the top third of their door frames. And I wanted to make Judaism more accessible, so I made them out of Legos and put minifigures on the top, and I would sell them to Jewish museums around the country.
That's so creative. So
that's what I was doing before.
Yeah.
And then this social worker told me this, and I took the underwear to, I think, a women's shelter that had kids living there. And I decided to do the drives. And so I would do the drive. And in 2012, a nurse contacted me and said, "Can I have more underwear? I'm out of underwear." She was here in Houston. Well, that's where I was getting. So she's in Houston. And so I took a bunch of underwear that I had left, and I drove down to her school, a low-income elementary school, and I walked in, and she said, "Rabbi Weiss, thank goodness you're here." And there was a little girl there who had had an accident, and I had a bunch of princess underwear in the bag. And so she got the underwear, and I was walking back to the car, and I thought, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is it. That is how that happened.
So you just had this realization as you were walking back to your car. And I'm curious, some people see a need, they want to help the need, and they decide, I'll volunteer, I'll raise some money, I'll do a project. But you knew at some point that this needed to be a nonprofit, structured as a nonprofit. How did you know that that was the right path for this particular initiative?
So that was 2012. And remember, I blogged about it in 2008.
Right.
So I'd had several years to understand the need and to hear from the nurses and the educators about how important it was and why no one was giving underwear and that no one was giving underwear. And I also come from a small family business, and I've done little entrepreneurial things before. I became a rabbi. I went to rabbinical school when I was 28. It's about helping the world, right? But I also have this business thing in me that is the sort of framework, maybe. It's one of the frameworks in which I live. That is how I knew. I knew that kids needed underwear and that doing a drive once a year wasn't going to do it. And it never occurred to me to make it into just like a regular volunteer thing and have people do it. It was like, and I did this.
So you saw that the need was kind of bigger than a once a year drive.
Yes, right.
And the infrastructure would help you meet the need better.
Correct.
Well, talk to me a little bit more about your education and training that you believe makes you successful at this role at Undies for Everyone.
It's a lot. It's everything that I've done. My family's business, it was sales, right? So literally from the time I was 9 years old, I've been selling things and it just works for me. It's not that hard for me to sell things that I believe in. So that's one part. The second part is I have a degree in advertising, copywriting, not at all artistic. Thank God for Canva, right?
I love Canva.
Right. So, so the advertising degree really helped in terms of being able to communicate the message and understanding the very, very, very important role that plays, the advertising and the PR plays in making the nonprofit successful, in reaching more people that you have to have. So that was a big part. And then the last part is my rabbinical training and just being grounded in repairing the world. That's sort of the phrase for doing good deeds. Repairing the world is what we're supposed to be doing. So that is part of my psyche all the time. So people ask, are you still a practicing rabbi? Well, yes, I'm a rabbi all day, every day. And what I do for me is my rabbinate. I have the only underwear rabbinate in the whole world, which I love. And I'm helping hundreds of thousands of people. That's how I'm repairing the world. So everything I've learned, I think, has brought me to this.
So when you think about advice you would give other people starting a nonprofit founders in terms of education or training or just preparing their mindset, what are some things you'd recommend for them?
So in a perfect world, you'd go get an advertising degree, right? Maybe become a rabbi, but that's 5 years, and then advertising's 4 years, so now you're at 9. So if you're in a little bit of a time crunch, you should take classes about nonprofits. And that can be in most bigger cities, there are lots of nonprofit degrees that you can get and certifications, but there are a lot of things online. Udemy and Coursera, they offer lots and lots of things. It's not expensive, and there are things you need to know, basics about starting a nonprofit and the things that means. So I would recommend, if you don't have a degree in anything else, just go learn about nonprofits.
I know I did a nonprofit minor when as part of my undergrad. I also did nonprofit management as part of my graduate program.
That's amazing.
But I did that while I was already running my nonprofit. So I did
better late than never.
But I would say it was definitely helpful in learning some of those basics, like the basics of nonprofit accounting and fundraising and grant writing, the logistical stuff that is just part of the business.
And getting someone else to do it for you. Look, I think it's just crucial that you recognize what you do well, go do that, and find other people, get your friends, right? Grant writing is not rocket science. Answer the questions, right? That's just it. Farm it out. If you're not good at it, don't knock your head against the wall, making yourself a pro at something that, you'd be a pro at.
Yeah, that's something I've talked about in other videos is know your own strengths, and you literally can't do it all the roles. So figure out how you can build a team around you that can help. I think it's really interesting to see how nonprofits grow, especially from a financial perspective, since we know that in order to make the bigger impact, you need the resources to back that up. So talk to me about what were some of your top expenses when you were a nonprofit startup compared to what are those top expenses now, 12 years in, with the whole operation warehouse? I gave some of that away right there, probably.
The biggest expense from the beginning was the underwear.
Mm-hmm.
And I was paying a lot of money for it. I first started paying retail. So I would take the kids to Target at back to school time, and they have the cardboard things, and I have pictures of the boys one would take the underwear off the display and put it in the cart, and the other would take off the 50 cents off coupon on it and get those and before we check out. Underwear was always the top, and also what I was going to put them in to give to people, trying. One year, Whole Foods gave bags. Another year, a company donated a few cardboard boxes. And now, far and away, the biggest expense we have is salaries.
And that's so important because people are the force behind making the over 1 million pair of underwear go out. I've talked about the importance of proper investment in your team and fair compensation for nonprofit leadership in other videos. So I think just reiterating that point is so important. On the other side of it, when you were a startup, what were your biggest sources of revenue, and how does that compare to your biggest sources of revenue now?
The very first grant was from Theta Charity Antique Show. A sorority, alum sorority that did an enormous antique show here in Houston. They were the very first organization to believe in us and give us a grant. And the second one was Junior League. So that was how that started. And then there was a couple of years in, there was a children's nonprofit that liked to fund little tiny nonprofits that didn't have a lot of money, and and we got a lot of money 3 years in a row. So that was how we started. Really, foundations are the biggest source of revenue that we have. I write a lot of grants. I'm very, very particular about which ones I write. So I spend more time researching than I do writing, because you just answer the question. Right. And you have an answer bank, or you have an AI program where the answers are already in. So figuring out which foundation is right for you and your mission is really the key with that. Individuals, small donations have also been important for us. And then corporation, we have programs that you don't even know about. So corporations have become a big part, and also community, a very small part of community, like churches and synagogues that give money to us. And organizations like the Houston Junior Forum, which is a group of retired women who have a resale shop, and they do incredible things. Latin Women's Initiative, really supportive Hispanic women that want to make a difference, and they support nonprofits in the community. Instead of them doing the work, they find the organizations that are doing the work that they value.
So if you had to ballpark, if you can visualize a pie chart, when you were first starting out, what % would you say came from foundations or grants versus corporate versus individuals?
So there was no corporate.
No corporate.
Oh, no government.
No government.
I'm not applying for government funding.
So hard to get those anyway, yeah.
It is hard to get, and it is hard to manage. You then have to hire a person just to fill out the paperwork on each end of it. And then we think that's a waste of our time. It's great for other people, but it just doesn't work for us. So from the beginning, it was all individuals and a teeny tiny sliver of foundations that grew, because you have to get someone to take a chance on you. And then usually on a grant, they say, who else funds you? And once you start having a few, right?
It's just social proof.
Right, yeah. Exactly. Well, if this group likes you, then we'll take a chance too. So that grows. So it was a teeny tiny bit of foundations, and then it was individuals, and there wasn't anything else.
And then fast forward to today, what's the pie chart look like now?
Pie chart is foundations, individuals. It's almost foundations, individuals, and corporations, and a much smaller piece of community. I think community is like 9%. Grants maybe like 30-some percent, something like that.
And then individuals and corporate kind of split.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really helpful. So
that's from what I remember. I could be completely wrong.
Yeah. I mean, but just to, as a sort of recap, thinking through this, I see this a lot when you're first starting out. It really is about those individuals believing in you and getting you started.
Yes. Having friends with money is super hassle.
It's true. Fair enough. And, but then over time, we see some diversification as you're branching out, making new.
You have to.
Yeah.
You have to.
Yeah.
And then within the individuals, it's figuring out which of those people you can grow it from 3-figure donation to a 4 and then a 5-figure donation.
Building those relationships over time with those major givers.
And then make sure you keep up the pipeline of the little gifts under 500.
That's called donor stewardship. So if you were going to give advice to someone just starting a nonprofit, what tips would you offer in terms of how to start and grow a revenue stream from that beginning stage?
Foundation Center Online is key.
The grant resource.
The grant resource, the online grant resource that has thousands of corporations and foundations. I think it's like $1,500 or something like that. Go find the money. And don't say it's too expensive, because you have to spend money to make money. And it is the only place that you can go and really vet right down to the exact kind of foundation or corporation that you want to get money from and where they're located. So that is a big deal. And then putting yourself on Candid and filling out. Candid is the parent company of Foundation Center Online, and they rate nonprofits, and so does Charity Navigator. There's several of them. Go on there and get yourself known. After you have your EIN, get on there and put in as much information as you can. You look more legit. And the other thing is get a logo.
Yeah.
Get a logo.
Canva might be good if you're not a design person.
Hire someone.
By the way, Canva is not sponsoring this video.
Hire someone. Look, if this is not what you do, if you are not a graphic designer, do not try this at home. Go hire someone or find a friend that knows a friend that can make a logo for you and can do some online letterhead, and also get a Canva subscription. It's free for nonprofits. Right. It is free for nonprofits. You just have to apply to them. And get an account on TechSoup.
Yes, and TechSoup, if you're not familiar, is a place where you can get a membership and get discounts to all sorts of software and technology out there for nonprofits. What I'm hearing is some of this is about establishing credibility, even down to the logo, right? Like you can definitely tell the difference between someone's logo that they did in Microsoft Paint versus a logo that was designed by a designer. And I don't say that to make fun of anyone's logos, but
we're not pointing at you.
Right. So when a donor's looking at your website or your materials, having a logo that looks professionally designed, there is something to that. It can add that sort of authority and
we all do that when we shop, right? If we go to a website, the other thing is the website, right?
Mm-hmm.
Use a template, right? You don't make it up yourself, because when we shop, if we go to a website that looks hinky, we do not stay there. We go to something else. And it's the same for nonprofits.
Right.
They want to know that they are going somewhere that has a good reputation and looks professional. And if you look professional, then you're probably going to be acting professional, and your nonprofit is going to be more professional than the other 10.
Yeah, it's down to trust, right? We've been talking about in other videos how
perception.
Yeah, donors have to perceive that you're trustworthy, that you
and that's
your stuff.
And that's why those Charity Navigator and Candid accounts are so important.
The lights keep going off in here. It's okay though. Let's talk about staffing and some infrastructure. So tell me more about what your current annual budget is now, 12 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And how long did it take you from starting out to be able to hire your first full-time
maid
staff
to hire me?
Yes.
A little deceptive.
Okay.
So it's $2.9 million.
Okay.
Because 2/3 of it is underwear.
Right.
We receive a lot of underwear as a donation from large companies. So our real, but like 1.2, 1.3, something like that is what I think this year after is 1.5.
So the underwear is all in kind, or money to buy underwear, or mix of both?
Well, the money to buy underwear is unrestricted funds, right? So that's just part of fundraising. The in kind is, we have to have that.
The underwear, yeah.
Yes.
And in kind, if you are not familiar with the term, is when you receive goods or services as the donation instead of cash.
Like that person who's going to do your logo for free.
Exactly. Okay, so 2.9, but really 1.3 operating. And we know it took you about 12 years to get here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how many years was it between starting out and being able to hire first paid staff person, which was you?
I don't remember. I want to say probably 5 years in.
Okay.
I was making $18,000 a year.
Yeah, first salary, $18,000.
$18,000. It went up to 24.
Yes.
You know.
There you go.
Yeah. $18,000.
Right. So not really enough to pay the bills. Right.
No.
But
family of 4.
Right. So, fast forward, at a certain point, you're hopefully making enough to live on and all that. But how do you go about working out what that salary is going to be with your board? And what tips do you have for other founders or executive directors on navigating that with your board too?
Go raise low. Go raise bulk. I am totally serious. Go raise a lot of money and prove that the revenue stream is there and that it is consistent, that it's not a one-off, that you won't be getting that gift again. The board, who is your boss, they can fire you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to set your raise. They may look at a bonus type of plan. They may look at you're only going to get cost of living for this year, or you've done a really good job and we've looked at the budget and this is how much we can increase you. If you're the development person, which most nonprofit founders are,
mm-hmm.
you have to raise your own salary.
Yep.
That's really it. You have to raise your own salary. And if you want your salary to be bigger, then you have to raise more money. And it has to be a steady income stream and show that to the board. It's not that hard.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think sometimes we forget that if we're hoping for a certain salary, it's got to come from somewhere, which means, like Amy was saying, if you're the founder, you're probably the fundraiser also, or the top fundraiser, you've got to raise it and show your board that you've done that.
And they are going to also say, well, what are other nonprofit leaders making? Most cities, I can't say for smaller towns, but they have a United Way. So United Way has a salary survey, but you have to participate in order to get a copy of the report, unless you have a friend, and they can give you a copy of that. And that will give the board a good idea of what other people in organizations of similar size are making.
So that's a salary benchmarking survey. If you don't have a United Way who does that in your area, I know that sometimes there are centers for nonprofits who run similar reports, at least for the statewide level. You can get some of that data from GuideStar or Candid, I guess. They're one and the same now, I think. Yes, so Candid also does a national survey. You have to purchase the full report, but you can get a sample from their website. So there are places you can find this information of what executive directors should be being paid, but
it's usually based on the budget size,
right,
of the nonprofit.
Right. If your annual budget is $250K, you're probably not going to make $300K.
Or 100
is very wrong, right? So those reports will show how that breaks down by budget range and, fascinatingly, usually by issue area. I learned that arts organizations directors tend to get paid more than animal rescue executive directors, for example. So it matters. A lot of factors play into it. So I know I've learned a lot about Undies for Everyone. I'm super inspired. How can someone else who has just learned about you support your cause?
Such a great question. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
You can go to our website, undiesforeveryone.org, and we have a couple of things. You can absolutely donate. There's an online donation form, but we also have two other programs that might interest people. One is called One Click Undies. That is an underwear drive that anyone can do. Look, we know from COVID, people don't like to go to the store, buy the thing, and then take it to where it's being collected. So we have an Amazon wish list that we create at any given time for what we need. We send it to that organization or that person. We also have email templates that they can send to their friends so they don't have to write the email.
So easy.
All of the underwear is sent here. So that's one way. The other way is getting people to actually roll the underwear. So for a set donation, a company, most often a company that wants to do something in their office, and it's hard to find a volunteer opportunity in their office, we send a certain number of pair. We work with them, a certain number of pair, the bags, the stickers, and we send it all and we teach them how to pack by a Zoom call. And we work with them and we find a children's agency in their area. And after they're done rolling it and packing it, they're going to serve 360 kids. And they just take those 10 boxes to that agency. And that's called Undies for Change.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's an example of what I would call a portable project.
There are not enough portable projects. There are not. It is hard for people, corporate, citizenship professionals to find that. So it's been a great way to get people involved. And the other thing is, if you're not a corporation, nonprofit, churches, synagogues, we have book clubs, family reunions, families at holiday time. They just want to make a donation and make a difference. So we ship it to them and you do the same thing.
Amazing. I hope you will go check out the Undies for Everyone website.
Me too.
Figure out how you can support Amy and the wonderful work that she's doing.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. What did you think of Amy's practical, no-nonsense tips for growing a nonprofit? Are you working on starting a nonprofit right now? I'd love to hear some of your top takeaways from Amy's story, so share those in the comments below. Once again, don't forget to subscribe to our free newsletter, Changemaker Mondays. It's a weekly newsletter with actionable tips to help you grow your impact, whether it's through nonprofits, social entrepreneurship, and more. And you can subscribe using the link below this video. I'll see you next time.